The first time Tyler Kincaid shot me that smug little grin across the boardroom table, I realized the devil wasn't dressed in Prada at all. He preferred Allbirds and a LinkedIn bio that screamed visionary leader. He'd been here all of 3 days. Walked in with his sleeves rolled up, sipping a $7 green juice, talking about making Broxton tech leaner and future-facing. Which, in plain English, meant gutting the place and slapping buzzwords on whatever was left. He pointed at the huge black binder on the corner shelf, my binder, and said, "We'll clean up this ancient junk. Nobody reads binders anymore." The room laughed. I didn't. You ever feel your whole body go cold while your face stays perfectly polite? That was me right then. I'd spent 10 years pouring my life into that so-called ancient junk. Every audit trail, protocol signature, and vendor certificate that let us land defense contracts bigger than anything he'd ever touched. He had no idea what he was about to erase. That binder wasn't some sentimental relic. It was legal scaffolding. One wrong page and the whole structure collapses. Quick pause, since about 97% of listeners never hit subscribe, tapping that button really helps keep these stories going. Anyway, Tyler kept grinning like he'd already won something. He even called me Mom. Once in a Slack message. Let's get Mom's sign-off before we archive the old stuff. I was 52, 2 years from cashing out my pension and heading into early retirement. But this wasn't about ego. It was about accuracy. And Tyler? The man was sloppy. He came from a VC-backed startup that collapsed under its own hype. They'd built an app that promised to revolutionize compliance, but forgot to encrypt user data. I read the SEC report myself. He was listed as the Chief Disruption Officer, which, near as I can tell, means guy who lights fires and pretends the wind did it. Now he was here, strutting around like Caesar at a county fair, barking orders to streamline everything. My systems. My procedures. His big idea was to let interns audit compliance logs using ChatGPT and Google Sheets. He told finance we'd sunset the legacy record warehouse and replace it with some platform called Neon Hive, which sounded more like a vape flavor than a database. And that binder? That wasn't just documentation. It was a trap. One I'd built piece by piece. I didn't argue. Guys like Tyler are like arguing with a vape cloud. It disappears before it hits anything solid. So I nodded, took notes, let him call me redundant, and just waited. See, 10 years ago, during a heavy DoD certification push, I quietly tucked a clause into our compliance framework, Clause 13F. Nothing flashy. Most people never even noticed it. But it had teeth. If anyone tampered with certified compliance documentation during an active federal procurement cycle, and if the original custodian, meaning me, didn't initiate the change, it triggered an automatic internal lockdown. Full system freeze. Assets locked. Legal forced to stop operations until outside counsel reviewed everything and, this is the best part, until the original custodian signed off. And here's the kicker. The clause wasn't digital. It was signed, actual ink, filed, and backed up on an external mirror server registered under my name. Not Broxton's, not IT's, mine. Every quarter I updated it. Every certification. Every time someone like Tyler chirped, "We're moving fast," I just smiled and documented faster. So when Tyler leaned back in his ergonomic chair during that meeting, clapped his hands and said, "All right, folks, next week we start digital spring cleaning. Time to retire the paper dinosaur." I closed my notepad, stood up, and quietly walked out. Let them laugh. Let them tear through my files like toddlers with crayons. They had no idea that binder in the corner wasn't just full of paper. It was full of triggers. And one arrogant little man-child had just started tugging on those triggers without the slightest clue. 2 days later, I walked into the file room and found an intern buried up to her elbows in one of the archive drawers. Like she was digging for granola bars instead of signed federal certifications. She looked up at me with a bright smile. "Hey, Tyler said we could start clearing out old files. You know, streamlining." She lifted a folder, Vendor 427C, complete with their dirty chain of custody affidavits, and said, "This stuff's like pre-2018. He said anything older than 5 years is compliance compost." His words. I gave her a single nod and walked out before something sharp slipped out of my mouth and landed me in HR's office with a security escort. Turns out streamlining had become Tyler's whole religion. and he was baptizing interns in pure ignorance. Some poor kid from marketing had been assigned to dig through server logs and mark anything that looked redundant. Another was told to simplify the vendor onboarding binder, which in corporate language means gut every legal safeguard until we're a piñata waiting for an auditor with a stick. The next morning, I brewed my usual burnt office coffee, opened my inbox, and there it was. Subject: Internal Optimization Audit Initiative. Sender: Tyler Kincaid. Recipients: everyone. It kicked off with his trademark chest puffed TED Talk in an email nonsense. As part of our evolution into a modern, agile enterprise, we'll be performing a full audit and purge of outdated compliance material. Any records predating 2020 may be sunset unless specifically flagged by a department lead. Let's unclog the arteries of bureaucracy. He bolded that last part as if it made him profound. I stared at the email long enough to drain half my mug. No attachments. No disclaimers. No legal sign-off. He sent it like he was announcing a casual pizza lunch, not firing up a metaphorical shredder in a federal contractor during a pre-bid eligibility review. I headed straight to the break room. I needed to hear someone else confirm the madness before I did what I was about to do. Sherry from finance and Malik from legal were sitting on the couch, whispering like middle schoolers trading cheat sheets. "They say we're going after the Stratton Systems bid," Sherry murmured, checking over her shoulder. "That's federal. Military-grade compliance. Top-tier vendor list. Does Tyler even understand what that means?" Malik asked. Sherry let out a laugh that sounded like she'd already updated her resume. Back in my office, I pulled up my notes. Stratton Systems wasn't just another opportunity. It was a $180 million, 3-year contract governed under the Federal Acquisition Regulation. The kind of contract with sharp teeth. The kind that doesn't care how many interns you've got copy-pasting jargon into Notion docs. You botch documentation once and you're blacklisted for 10 years. And Tyler? He was currently holding a meeting on a beanbag, I later learned, pitching his clean sweep compliance vision to the board. How do I know? Because Broxton's walls are made of hope and drywall. I heard every word. We've got a legacy paper trail bogging us down. Honestly, some of it was written by people who probably still think fax machines are cutting edge. Pause. Soft chuckle. No offense to our senior team, he added like that magically protected him from HR. Then he delivered the kill shot. Look, we've got dead weight. Legacy processes. Legacy mindsets. If we want to land Stratton, we need to show them we're forward-thinking. Not stuck in the past with some binder lady who's been here since the Bush administration. Binder lady. That one echoed. Not compliance architect. Not named custodian. Not the reason we've never been fined by the feds. Just binder lady. He didn't say my name, but he didn't need to. Everyone knew exactly who built those logs, who designed the server tagging system, who had laminated every single access chart during the pandemic, while the rest of the exec team got day drunk on Zoom in Cabo. And now, while interns were stuffing my documents into black bags, he was up on the top floor calling me dead weight to board members who nodded along like they understood what Clause 13F even meant. It wasn't pride. It wasn't even anger. It was dread, pure dread. Watching a blind man rearrange a minefield. Because I knew exactly what was coming. The federal pre-audit would request documentation. They'd want retention logs, certifications, initials in the logbooks, the entire reason our compliance department even existed. And when they finally asked who maintained it all, every head would turn toward the office with the binder, only to find a hollowed-out desk with a pink post-it stuck to it that said "Streamlined." You ever watch a man brag while driving a bus straight off a cliff? I have. And I was holding the brake line in my pocket. The auditorium smelled like someone microwaved ambition and cheap cologne, which meant Tyler was about to present. Again. He called it an all hands, like we were about to gather for some noble cause instead of watching a frat boy in khakis tear down years of compliance infrastructure while he inhaled the sound of his own voice. I grabbed a seat in the back row, the same place I always sat, close to the exit, just in case my blood pressure decided to turn into a geyser. Tyler strutted across the stage like he was auditioning for a TEDx talk titled, "How to Wreck a Company in 90 Days or Less." Behind him, a giant slide flashed to life. Operational spring cleaning. "All right, team," he chirped. clapping like a caffeinated kindergarten teacher. Let's talk house cleaning. You all know we've been carrying legacy baggage, thousands of documents, obsolete systems, outdated procedures. He pointed at the screen as he flipped through a parade of stock photos. Manila folders, a dusty server room, random file cabinets pulled straight off Google Images. Here's the truth, he said, turning back around with that shiny startup zeal in his eyes. We're done hoarding junk. Compliance should be automated, clean, fast. No more binders. No more 5-signature authorizations for a coffee order. We're building a modern machine, and every machine needs a purge cycle. Scattered laughs from the front rows, mostly marketing and ops. The folks who treated policies like optional vibes. Tyler lit up like he just solved world hunger by deleting a spreadsheet. I've already greenlit the cleanup. Teams are identifying and removing anything older than 2020, unless flagged critical. And spoiler alert, very little has been flagged. I didn't blink. Just took a slow breath. Then he delivered the line. Oh, and don't worry, we're taking good care of the dinosaur binder, he said, complete with air quotes. Might even put it in the lobby as a conversation piece. Laughter rolled through the room. Louder this time. Couple people even clapped. I stood up. Quiet. No scene. Picked up my notebook, slid my pen into the spiral, and walked out before he could wring another smirk out of the moment. Down the hallway, past HR, past legal, past 2 interns dragging a rolling bin full of files labeled archive shred pending. I kept going. Back in my office, I shut the door. Locked it. Then turned on my computer and typed one simple line. To barrett.levine@kilburn-greaveslaw.com. Subject: 13F activation. Body: activate 13F. I hit send. No CCs. No fancy wording. Just a legal nuke sliding quietly across the wire. Then I opened my inbox and scrolled to Tyler's all-hands follow-up email, the one where he recapped his speech like he just delivered scripture. Cleanup begins this week. Thank you all for embracing the new future of Broxton. Let's get lean. I clicked reply. No greeting. No sign-off. Just one word. Done. I hit send. Then I stood up, stretched my back, and for the first time in months I actually smiled. Because that one word didn't mean I'd signed off on his circus or cleared out old folders. It meant the lock had turned. The trap had snapped shut. Clause 13F wasn't hypothetical. It was binding. Buried deep inside our compliance charter, ratified by legal, signed by the founder, and updated every quarter by me. It spelled out, in plain language, that any unauthorized tampering with compliance systems, files, or documentation during a federal pre-contract phase would trigger a full asset lockdown, a mandatory legal review, and an operational freeze until external counsel cleared every action. Didn't need IT. Didn't need engineering. It needed one email. From me. And that email had just landed on Barrett Levine's desk. Barrett, our external compliance counsel. The same guy who once shut down a $90 million deal in under 4 hours because a vendor forgot to list a subcontractor on their site access log. He wasn't going to wait for a meeting. He wasn't waiting for Zoom. He was going to flip the switch. And Tyler? He was probably still up on stage, raising a lukewarm LaCroix and a toast to efficiency, completely unaware that the point of no return had come and gone. Not with a bang. Not with a scream. With an email. A timestamp. And a binder nobody bothered to read. The funny thing about setting off a corporate bomb is how quiet it is at first. No alarms. No flashing lights. No executives sprinting through hallways like someone lit Wall Street on fire. Just silence. The whole building holding its breath. I spent the next hour casually sorting my desk, rearranged some pens, flipped through an old folder labeled 2014 vendor transfers, pre-redline versions, because I felt nostalgic. My phone buzzed once. Barrett. Subject: Routine F. Message acknowledged. Countdown initiated. 59 minutes and 34 seconds. I leaned back. That was the clock. Once 13F activated, we had exactly 1 hour before everything froze. Systems, databases, vendor access, financials, all locked until legal cleared it. Clause 13F wasn't just policy. It was a kill switch with legal fangs and automated triggers buried all over our infrastructure. Invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. And Tyler? Tyler didn't know anything beyond the shine of his own reflection. Down the hall, someone laughed, still riding the high of that all-hands pep rally. I waited 10 more minutes, then grabbed my keys and purse. Took the long route through the compliance wing. That's when I saw her, Jenna. Fresh out of grad school, still carrying that eager energy like she expected a gold star for labeling folders neatly. She stood frozen at her monitor, clicking over and over. Something wrong? I asked, sipping my cold coffee like we weren't minutes away from a controlled detonation. She looked up worried. I'm trying to pull the Q1 audit log templates, but it says the drive's inaccessible. And the chain of custody register? It's just gone. Like it disappeared. I said, keeping my expression plain. You flag IT? Tyler said they probably moved it. He said they're debloating the server. She used air quotes like they might shield her from the fallout. Sounds about right, I said. Let me know if you need anything. And I kept walking. Tyler wasn't going to listen to Jenna. He wasn't going to listen to anyone. Not until the whole structure buckled under the weight he'd piled on it. Men like him always make the same mistake. They think silence means agreement. That stillness means surrender. But silence is a choice. And I had already made mine. By the time I reached the parking garage, my phone buzzed again. Message from Barrett Levine. Status update. Legal hold initiated. Initial flags detected on Stratton pre-bid systems. External review inbound. Translation. The first locks were starting to click. I stopped at my usual coffee shop, ordered a medium drip, and grabbed one of those sad granola bars they keep by the register. Ate it anyway. Watched the steam drifting off my cup like smoke rising from a lit fuse. Back at Broxton, Tyler was probably telling some intern to wipe the junk off another shared drive. Convinced he was guiding us into the future. Maybe he was drafting a keynote on leading through data disruption. Maybe he was still calling me binder lady. Didn't matter. Because the binder? That was the trigger. And the timer was still ticking. I sat by the window, sipping calmly while the world outside acted like nothing was happening. The janitor swept the sidewalk. A bus honked. 2 teenagers argued about which Marvel villain had the best redemption arc. And inside Broxton, they were about to watch mine. By the time the first real crack formed, the smell of smug still lingered on the top floor. At 9:07 a.m. the security log anomaly alert started chiming. Soft at first, like rain tapping on a metal roof. 3 failed authentications on the vendor archive portal. 5 restricted file trees sealed themselves in the middle of active sessions. A compliance analyst tried to upload a procurement affidavit and got kicked out with a bright red banner. Access suspended pending external verification. He figured it was a glitch. Rebooted. Tried again. It wasn't. At 9:13, a ticket hit the IT queue labeled Priority 1 CFO access denied. Tyler was in a strategy meeting, scribbling phrases like vision velocity and elastic culture scaffolding across a whiteboard when his phone buzzed. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again. Then again, this time the call screen flashing the CFO's name. I can't open the Stratton proposal folder, she snapped the second he answered. Panic, completely unfiltered. And last quarter's financials are frozen. Why is my dashboard locked? Tyler waved vaguely at his assistant. Probably a migration hiccup. We're restructuring servers. It'll sort itself out. Spoiler, it would not. Down in legal, Christine, the same attorney who once crushed a shady subcontractor with a footnote, was scrolling through a document so fast her mouse nearly launched off the desk. Hey, she called to the junior associate. Pull up the compliance charter. I need to confirm something. What's clause 13F? The associate blinked. 13 what? Christine's tone dropped into a register reserved for bad news. 13. Pull it. Now. The kid typed like his fingers were about to catch fire. Meanwhile, finance tried running their ledger export script. It crashed instantly. Ops pinged the shared Stratton vendor timeline locked. One of our security vendors emailed that their integration handshake had been flagged as unverified and suspended. Then Stratton's legal portal, set to receive our next compliance documents, rejected the upload with a generic message. Certification pending review. Access denied. And at exactly 9:26, Christine pushed her chair back so hard it nearly toppled. She stood up like someone who just read their own name on a gravestone. Jesus, she whispered. Clause 13F mandatory asset lockdown in event of unauthorized compliance tampering. It wasn't optional. It was a system-wide chokehold signed by the original compliance architect, tied into both internal and external audit systems, backed by mirrored verification servers, and worst of all, it was already active. Christine marched out of legal like a one-woman thunderstorm, heels cracking against the floor, and stormed straight into Tyler's office. He was still grinning at his buzzword-covered whiteboard. "Tyler," she barked. He turned around, half laughing. "Hey, Christine. Listen, don't worry about the access hiccups. IT's on it." Christine didn't even look at him. She tossed a printed sheet of the compliance charter onto the table. It slid across the surface and landed face up. Clause 13F. "Tell me," she said, her voice slow and razor steady. "Did you authorize the deletion of any compliance documents tied to a named custodian?" Tyler blinked. Yeah. We've been cleaning house. That whole binder nonsense was slowing us down." "Why?" Christine didn't blink. Didn't breathe. "Because you just set off a federal-grade lockdown protocol. This isn't IT, Tyler. This is legal infrastructure. We're not just locked out. We're under review." Tyler let out a scoff. "Okay, but that has to be some old clause. Probably never enforced." "It was updated last quarter," she said. "Signed, ratified, and tied to an external counsel trigger." Tyler stared at her, like the words were bouncing off his forehead. "Wait, you're telling me this binder clause shut down our systems?" "No, Tyler," she said flatly. "You did." At that exact moment, 2 floors down, Barrett Levine logged into the external mirror servers that didn't belong to Broxson, but were verified under our federal audit continuity plan. He watched as the compliance asset control system clicked into lockdown phase 2. Anomalies confirmed. Triggers validated. Clause 13F, active. All because one man couldn't be bothered to read past page 12 of a document he'd ordered interns to shred. The locks weren't just clicking anymore. They were sealed. The boardroom was mid-presentation. Tyler had just advanced to a slide that read, "Broxson's future streamlined, scalable, secure." White letters, black background, maximum CEO energy. He stood in front of it like a Silicon Valley prophet, hands folded, voice syrupy as he pitched Broxson's readiness for federal expansion. Around the table, directors nodded. Some politely, some blankly, most just wanting reassurance that the Stratton contract was within reach. "I wasn't there. Didn't need to be. My job was done. Everything now was just a slow-motion car crash everyone would pretend they didn't see coming." Tyler had just launched into a half-baked metaphor about trimming the fat so the muscle can grow, when the boardroom door slammed open hard enough to rattle the glass wall. Christine stormed in, lead counsel, 2 printed packets in one hand, her phone still connected to a call in the other. "Everyone stop. Right now." Her voice was so sharp one of the directors dropped his pen. Tyler blinked. "Christine? What?" She didn't let him finish. Clause 13F just went live. "We are now in a mandatory asset lockdown under external legal review. As of 9:31 a.m., all compliance systems, servers, audit chains, and procurement documents are frozen." A director leaned forward, frowning. "Wait, what clause?" Christine tossed the packet onto the table. The director scanned the bold heading. Clause 13F mandatory asset seizure protocol in event of unauthorized compliance tampering. Tyler gave a quick, nervous laugh. "All right, let's all breathe. This sounds like some outdated policy relic. We're just cleaning up old files. Nobody seized anything." Christine turned to him slowly, her voice clean and precise, like a guillotine being released. "Did you authorize the deletion of any documents tied to a named compliance custodian?" He hesitated. That alone was enough. One director looked up. "What does that mean?" "It means," Christine said, still locked onto Tyler, "that someone bypassed the only person legally allowed to alter our audit trails during an active pre-certification period tied to a federal contract. It means we triggered a clause that treats internal tampering the same way it treats a breach in chain of custody protocol. We were just streamlining." Tyler snapped, heat rising in his face. "We were removing redundant legacy systems." Tyler insisted, his voice cracking around the edges. And now you've triggered a clause that hands operational authority to external counsel until the review is complete, Christine said. You've locked the entire company down. Then unlock it. Tyler barked, whipping his head toward the directors. Call IT. Tell them to revert whatever they did. It's not IT, she said, her tone cold enough to frost glass. This isn't a tech error. This is compliance protocol, built to activate without internal override. One board member coughed into his sleeve. Another flipped through the printed charter, his eyes widening with every line he read. And who the hell designed this clause? The CFO demanded, already scrolling through her phone like the answer might be hiding in her inbox. Christine tilted her head toward the doorway. She did. That's when I walked in. Nobody summoned me, but after 10 years of cleaning up catastrophes before they made the news, Christine and I had our own rhythm. I stepped into the room wearing my slate blazer, carrying the original signed copy of Clause 13F. This clause, I said, placing it flat on the conference table, was ratified 6 years ago. Re-signed every year. Updated 3 months ago. Every line was approved by legal, initialed by the founder, and bound to our federal readiness charter, including external mirror backups and automatic triggers if tampering occurred. Tyler stared at me like I just detonated a bomb on purpose. You planned this? No, I said. I documented it. A director leaned forward. Why would you create something so extreme? Because I've survived 4 COOs, 3 CFOs, and 6 VPs who all said the exact same thing. Clean up the old stuff. And every one of them underestimated the risk. Tyler spun toward the board. Desperate. You can't be serious. We're talking about a binder and a few PDFs. Christine held up a hand. No. We're talking about a $180 million federal contract that now requires written proof, that Broxton did not compromise internal compliance integrity. And as of this morning, we cannot guarantee that. Because of you, Tyler. Silence spread across the room like ink. Christine's phone buzzed. She read the message. External counsel is assuming full control of compliance systems effective immediately. They'll be contacting Stratton's legal department by close of business. Tyler dropped into a chair as if someone had kicked the legs out from under him. No one moved. No one breathed. The system was running the show now. And Tyler? He was just another unsecured variable. One that had finally, fatally been flagged. The board reconvened after lunch, but the atmosphere had gone gray, ashen even. Gone were the polite nods and hopeful expressions from earlier. Tyler was nowhere in sight. Rumor said he'd holed up in the wellness room to process. Whatever that meant. What remained was tension. Thick and quiet. Legal pads open. Pens hovering midair. Everyone waiting for someone else to speak first. At last, the chairman did, softly, like he was afraid of waking something dangerous. Who put this clause in place? Christine didn't flinch. She didn't need to check her papers. She answered with the calm weight of someone who had nearly watched her entire legal framework collapse because one man couldn't read. She did. And she pointed at me. I was already standing outside the boardroom door, waiting like a summoned ghost. No one came to retrieve me. I just stepped inside as the door opened. No blazer now, just a dark sweater, the one I always wore when systems went down or auditors arrived early. I didn't sit. I didn't need to. I stepped forward and laid a single document on the table, crisp, original, still carrying that faint metallic scent from the cabinet where it had lived for years. Clause 13F. Signed by the company's founder. Ratified by legal. Bound to my certification as named compliance custodian. Renewed every fiscal year. Last updated 97 days ago. Still active. The CEO stared at it as if it were written in ancient runes. One of the directors flipped to the second page and actually exhaled when he saw the founder's scrawled signature. The one they all treated like gospel. And right above it, my name. Plain simple, the same way it had appeared on every compliance charter and every external audit contact sheet since 2013. I said only what mattered. This clause was never hidden. It's on page 48 of the Compliance Continuity Framework. Every executive receives that manual on day one. Christine added, it's also referenced in every version of the company's federal procurement readiness file. Stratton has it on record. The board chair cleared his throat. And these mirror backup servers, who owns them? I met his gaze. I do. That hit the room like a gavel. He started to speak, probably to question my authority, but Christine cut in first. She owns them through a custodial agreement filed with our external counsel. The servers were registered as continuity insurance during the 2018 compliance overhaul. They're verified under both our risk coverage and federal data recovery protocols. Another director squinted like the words were rearranging themselves. So you're saying our entire federal audit trail is housed on servers? Not owned by Broxton? Christine nodded. Not owned by Broxton, but registered for Broxton. And as per Clause 13F, access transfers back to internal systems only after full legal clearance and sign-off by the original custodian. There it was. The silence shifted. Not tense. Not hostile. Just recalibrated. Because the woman they'd overlooked for years, the one who wrote the notes, kept the receipts, and made sure signatures matched policies, was the only person who could reverse what had just happened. And I didn't offer it. Not yet. I'll cooperate fully with the review, I said. But until it's complete, no system reentry should be attempted. That includes IT workarounds, vendor sync attempts, or file restoration scripts. Any breach would trigger a federal escalation. Christine backed me instantly. She's right. That would elevate this from internal protocol failure to a full violation of federal contract terms. Stratton would pull the bid. No one argued. They couldn't. The system wasn't built on trust. It was built on evidence chain of custody authorizations. And when they let Tyler bulldoze all of that in the name of efficiency, they handed me back the control I'd never asked for, only prepared for. I turned to leave. Someone whispered. Why didn't she warn us? Christine answered before I could. She did. Every quarter. Every clause. Every document. You just didn't read them. The door shut behind me. And inside the mirror servers only I still held the keys to, federal compliance partners were already combing through the data. Quiet. Methodical. They didn't need my voice. Just my name. The official memo went out that afternoon. Subject: Organizational realignment, interim operational safeguards. Buried beneath 3 paragraphs of HR-approved fluff was the only sentence that mattered. Tyler Kincaid is suspended effective immediately pending external compliance review. Just like that, the golden boy with a TED Talk complex was gone. No farewell Slack posts. No corporate eulogy. Just silence and an access badge that now showed revoked inside the very system he tried to erase. Didn't feel good. It didn't feel bad. Just felt clean. Like wiping a whiteboard you never asked to draw on in the first place. Legal started calling me back in. Though the truth was I'd never really left. The difference now was tone. No more passive-aggressive CCs. No more meetings where I sat through 20 minutes of Tyler preaching lean thinking, while I quietly held the clause that made the meeting legal in the first place. Now they asked. They waited. They listened. Christine scheduled a working session. Just her, the board's compliance liaison, and me. No assistants. No executives. Just paper, policies, and control on the table. We're rewriting the entire document protocol, she said, laying out a clean framework. Standardizing update logs, redline visibility, dual attestation for future policy deprecations. I nodded. Clause 13F will need revision too. Christine looked up. What do you want to change? Add dual control authority, I said. 1 custodian can trigger, but 2 required to deactivate. Makes the clause future-proof. She paused. You sure? I met her eyes. If I die tomorrow, this company can't afford to be this blind again. Christine nodded, quietly impressed. Toward the end of the session, she slid a new folder across the table. Label: Role Adjustment for Review. Inside was a new title: Compensation Structure. Director of Integrity Operations. I read it once. Closed the folder. I'm not interested in a promotion, I said. Christine held my gaze. We're not offering a promotion. We're offering ownership. That stopped me. Ownership. Of the very infrastructure Tyler tried to bury. The framework he mocked. The work he labeled legacy clutter. Now becoming its own department. And they were asking me to lead it. I didn't smile. Not because it didn't satisfy me, but because satisfaction wasn't the point. This was correction. Long overdue. I'll take it, I said. With 2 conditions. Christine raised an eyebrow. 1. My team. My hiring. I choose who maintains the protocols. No interference. Done. 2. Clause 13F revisions take effect immediately. And I want 13G drafted and ratified next quarter. She blinked. There's a 13G? There will be. A small smile tugged at her mouth. You already started writing it, didn't you? I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled a USB drive from my pocket, the same one I used to back up vendor logs before Broxon even had cloud storage. This has the updated protocol schema, deactivation parameters, handoff workflows, a draft for the mirror review toolchain. It's the foundation. Christine took it like it was a lit match. You realize this department will outlive most of us, right? She murmured. That's the point. By the end of the week, my office moved. No longer tucked away in the compliance wing, but upstairs near legal and risk. My badge cleared every system without tripping a single security ping. A new team started arriving. Not kids. Not interns. Professionals. People who understood what it meant to build structure, not just follow it. The plaque on my new door read, Director Integrity Operations. In quiet steel. And down on the second floor, in the data center Tyler once tried to clean out, the servers bearing my custodial signature kept humming. Unmoved, untouched, untouchable. I didn't gloat. Gloating requires ego. I had something stronger. Proof. 3 weeks later, the old compliance room looked like a museum exhibit curated by someone who finally understood what they'd almost destroyed. Gone were the metal shelves buckling under unlabeled files and the interns' chaotic cleanup piles. The room had been gutted, reorganized, and climate-controlled. A silent hum filled the room, the sound of servers, scanning tools, and biometric vaults replacing the shredders and half-labeled banker boxes that used to choke the space. And in the center, a glass display case. Simple. Sterile. Backlit like it held a relic. Inside it sat one thing, my binder. The original. The same 3-ring beast Tyler once dismissed as compliance compost. Now it stood as both artifact and warning. The engraved label beneath it read, Clause 13F. Activated 10:02 a.m. No names. No flourish. Just time and truth. It wasn't a tribute. It wasn't revenge. It was a timestamp, marking the moment the system stopped listening to slogans and started defending itself. I lingered longer than I intended, holding a new folder in my hands. Black cover. My blocky handwriting across the front. 13G. Immutable oversight. It wasn't protocol yet, but it would be. I opened the side panel of the case, set the folder beside the binder, and locked it again. Not for symbolism, for warning. Because the real lesson of 13F wasn't vengeance, it was resilience. You don't write traps. You build fail-safes. And 13G? It would make sure that next time the system didn't need me to catch anyone. Just the code. As I turned to leave, I caught voices drifting in from the hallway. A junior exec, new suit, new haircut, new overconfidence, was walking with someone from legal. He pointed to the display case. Hey, who actually wrote that clause? The lawyer didn't even slow down. The guy you tried to fire. The kid frowned. Wait, that was her. She was compliance before compliance had a name here, the lawyer replied. She didn't fight you. She documented you. Their voices faded down the hall. I didn't correct them. Didn't add a footnote or adjust the label. I just walked the corridor alone the same way I had for years. Only now, every system I passed, every login ping, every secure door clicking shut behind me, carried pieces of the infrastructure I'd built. Quiet authority. Not because they handed it to me, but because I made it bulletproof. By the time I reached my office, a new email pinged into my inbox. An external partner requesting access to our 13F activation schema for training. I approved it. Attached the policy excerpt. No comment. Then I leaned back and let the system I designed do exactly what it was built to do. Guard itself.